The bright lights of America's Got Talent shimmered across the grand stage as a young man from the Philippines stepped forward, clutching the microphone with trembling hands. The audience murmured with curiosity, sensing something unusual in the air. His name was Miguel Santos, a 27-year-old from Cebu City, who had flown halfway across the world chasing a dream that once seemed too big for a boy growing up in a small wooden house by the ocean. Back home, Miguel's story was one of perseverance and passion. His father, a fisherman, had raised him with the rhythm of the waves, and his mother, an Elvis Presley fanatic, filled their humble home with the King's timeless songs. Every night, little Miguel would hum along to "Can't Help Falling in Love," mimicking Elvis's deep, soulful tone while sitting on the bamboo steps of their home. Life wasn't easy. Poverty, typhoons, and the constant struggle to make ends meet shadowed every dream. Yet, through the hardships, Miguel carried one thing that no storm could wash away: his voice. That voice was his escape, his secret strength, and the one bridge between his humble beginnings and the towering stage he stood on tonight. When Simon Cowell looked up from his table and asked, "What brings you here today, Miguel?" the young man smiled nervously and said, "I came here to sing for my parents, and for my dream." The crowd applauded softly, unaware of the storm of emotions that was about to erupt the moment he opened his mouth. As the background track began to play, a silence fell across the hall. Miguel closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and let his first note roll out like a wave. Instantly, the air shifted. The deep, honeyed tone that poured out of him didn't sound like any ordinary singer, it was hauntingly familiar. Gasps spread across the audience, and even the judges leaned forward in disbelief. It was Elvis. Every word Miguel sang seemed to resurrect the king of rock and roll himself. From the low rumble of "Wise Men Say," to the powerful rise of "Only Fools Rush In," the voice, the phrasing, the soul, it was all there. The audience's amazement grew with each line, until the entire theater felt transported back in time. Miguel wasn't just imitating Elvis, he was channeling him. His movements were subtle but filled with confidence, his eyes closed as though he were singing to someone far away, perhaps his late mother, who had introduced him to the music that changed his life. Simon Cowell exchanged glances with Howie Mandel and Sofia Vergara, a rare moment of shock and awe crossing his face. By the time Miguel hit the final note, a high, tender tremor of emotion, the audience erupted in cheers, standing to their feet as one. It was as though everyone in that theater had just witnessed a miracle. When the applause finally settled, Simon Cowell sat speechless. For a man known for his blunt critiques and unshakable composure, the stunned expression on his face said everything. He leaned into the microphone and said quietly, "I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never heard anything like that." Miguel, still catching his breath, managed a humble smile and bowed slightly. Simon continued, "You sound exactly like Elvis Presley. It's uncanny. But more than that, you sang from your soul." The other judges chimed in with equal admiration. Howie Mandel described the performance as a moment of pure magic, while Sofia Vergara said it was like hearing history come alive. Heidi Klum's eyes sparkled as she added, "It wasn't just the voice, it was the heart behind it." The crowd roared again, chanting Miguel's name, as he covered his face in disbelief. For a boy who once sang in the echo of crashing waves, standing on one of the biggest stages in the world, this was beyond a dream, it was destiny. Simon smiled and said the words that would change Miguel's life forever. "Miguel, you just earned yourself a standing ovation, and something tells me this isn't the last time we'll be hearing your name." After the show, as Miguel walked backstage wiping away tears, a reporter asked how he managed to sing like Elvis so perfectly. Miguel smiled softly and said, "When I was a kid, my mother used to sing Elvis songs to calm me when I was hungry or scared. She told me that Elvis sang from the heart, that every word had meaning. When she passed away, I promised her I would never stop singing." That promise became Miguel's compass. Through every hardship, working odd jobs, singing in small bars, saving for his plane ticket to America, he held onto her memory. He studied old Elvis records for years, not to copy, but to understand. He learned that Elvis's magic wasn't just in his sound, it was in his sincerity. Miguel practiced daily, barefoot on the floor of his room, until his neighbors started calling him Elvis in Cebu. But Miguel never let the nickname inflate his ego, instead, it reminded him of his roots. "I'm not trying to replace the king," he once said, "I just want to keep his spirit alive." That spirit, humble, raw, and real, is what audiences felt that night. It wasn't just mimicry, it was legacy. A boy honoring his mother's memory, a son keeping a promise, and an artist bridging two worlds with a single voice. Within hours of the episode airing, Miguel's performance went viral. Social media platforms exploded with clips of his audition, drawing millions of views in just 24 hours. Fans from around the world flooded the comments with disbelief and admiration. "If Elvis were alive, he'd be proud," one wrote. "This Filipino guy just revived an era," said another. News outlets across America and Asia covered the story, dubbing him the voice of Elvis Reborn. Even old-school Elvis fans, some of whom had grown up in the 1950s, praised his authenticity and emotion. Miguel began receiving invitations to perform on talk shows, radio stations, and international events. Yet despite the fame, he remained humble, often thanking his mother in every interview. "This is not my success," he said softly. "It's hers." Simon Cowell, too, later tweeted, "Every once in a while, someone walks onto our stage and reminds us why we love music." Miguel did that. The entire AGT journey became a modern fairy tale, a story of hope, heritage, and the timeless power of song. Months later, Miguel stood once again on the AGT stage, this time in the grand finale. His outfit was a respectful nod to Elvis, a white suit with a golden scarf, but still uniquely Filipino, with intricate embroidery inspired by Cebu's culture. As he began to sing, "If I Can Dream," the audience rose before he even finished the first verse. The lyrics, about hope, unity, and belief, resonated deeply with his journey. Tears streamed down his face as he sang, "There must be lights burning brighter somewhere," because he knew, in that moment, that his light had finally found its place. When the final note rang out, the crowd roared in applause, confetti rained from above, and Simon Cowell stood clapping, something he rarely did. Miguel didn't just win the audience that night, he won the world's heart. And back in Cebu, a small family gathered by the sea, looking at the stars, knowing that the boy who once sang on bamboo steps had made his mother's dream live forever. His voice, Elvis's spirit reborn, echoed across oceans, proving that no dream is too far, no voice too small, and no love too forgotten to be heard again.